here's what the seat is off looking like. And I'm looking at this controller, trying to figure out where to put it. And it seems like it'll fit right in that area. That means I gotta pull whatever the hell this thing is for. I'll probably pull it off of this this mount and maybe just jam it up under here. And that way I can put this back in there, but I'll probably have to fold this up, then stick the controller in under it, and then fold it back down. Probably not too great for the weld. By the way, and in all their wisdom, they use sheet metal self-tapping screws for holding the EFI controller on here. So one screw is already lost to the wind. So I just took some silicone, RTV silicone, and siliconed around it. Just kind of put it, give it like a little soft shoe to sit in, and then siliconed in that last screw to help hold it in place. So not the best of designs in the world. So anyway, but that's where we're at. See how that works out. I've got kind of sort of the thing in place, the controller. And the tabs, you can see I've kind of bent them up out of the way so I can get that controller in there and that relay that's sitting right here. So I'm going to get him plugged back in, but I've already got the power connection established, the fan power coming from the controller, and the ground. I had to put an extension in there, so just to give myself a little bit extra so I can get everything kind of fitted. I know it's kind of dark in here, but get it all fitted up in there inside the underside of the tank where the mounts are. Get it zip tied in there, nice and tucked away, out of danger. But I figured it'd probably be a good idea now before we got too much farther down the road to get the fan tested really quick. So I got the fan on the back of the thing, and then just tapped into the power line and direct to the battery. Woo! That thing puts out some air. That's impressive. Alright, so the polarity's correct. Man, that thing actually moves a lot of air. So that's good. So we know that's working. I've already tested the controller, powered it up by connecting the ignition and power to the battery as well too. So you can see as soon as I touch the ignition line to the 12 volt, that's turned on. Looks like it's already reading a temperature, 51 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's accurate for what it is right now, about out here right now. It's about 51 degrees outside. So that's working. I just got to find the 12 volt ignition line somewhere in here. So I've got my 12 volt multimeter, and I'm going to try to find out if I can turn that key and hit the right wire. I did also have to change, I found a compatible thread, longer bolt to go into this mount for the fairing on the side, the air shroud. So, because I'm going to have the shroud, the mount for the radiator, and the mount for the fan. You know, this bolt's actually going to be holding like 4 things, you know. So it's got a lot of weight to carry on that side. So I had to get a longer bolt to kind of carry all those extra items. But so far so good. Looks like it's working. Cool, we're back. So anyway, I got the controller seated in there, and got the wires kind of set up. The power to the fan is kind of routed through the wiring harness where this sheet is coming through, and I've got an extra little bit of ground over here for the fan. We've already tested that, obviously. Wires, positive and negatives already connected for the controller and the fan to the battery. And controller is going to sit right up under here where this relay used to be. It used to sit right there under this tab attached to there with this little rubber booty thing. But basically I'm going to do is fold this tab back down, and that relay is going to sit over here on this side under this tab that's also bent up. And I'm going to just kind of slightly hammer them down back into flat position, because obviously the seat sits right over the top of them. But the extra wire for the extra fan, because this controller is designed to have 2 fans, It's going up under here. It didn't fit really well into this little cavity. Just the wire is really stiff and it just really mashes stuff up in there and just uncomfortably. So it just seems to fit better up under here. Just kind of rolled up, tucked under, zip tied, and just to make sure it doesn't float off anywhere. For safety's sake, I did pull the fuse for that line as well too, so to make sure that, you know, in case this thing wanted to fire up a fan, you know, it doesn't have a little hot tip on it that's going to maybe touch something up here in this fuel injection module. But anyway, so that's all hooked up, and I did find with the multimeter that there is a simple 12 volt, and it just so happens to be, for the ignition that is, happens to be the relay that I'm actually going to stick back in here anyway. So just hunting around, I fired the bike up and took my little probe. I got the ground hooked up down here. It's going to the battery negative, and then when we connect to which one was it? There it is, 12.15 volts. So the wire that is the darker, it's either black or gray. It's kind of hard to see with the light I got in here, but it looks like it's like a gray and black line, or just black, whatever the darker one is of that relay that's normally sitting there. That plug, the darker wire, is a constant 12 volt when the when the ignition is on. So see, there you go. So it's 12 volts. So that's going to be what I'm going to use as the power to have the controller on and off with the key. And then that's it. This thing should be good to go. Just program the temperature that's desired, and it should be ready to rock. To show you guys how I'm doing this one, I've got these really cool connectors that I found at a local hardware store. It's like a little bus bar type connector. They'll fit up to like 4 wires in there, but if you've got like common grounds for all kinds of different things, you know, or whatever connections, you can stick them all in together and they just all interconnect to the same bus bar. So I decided, instead of soldering or connecting or putting all kinds of goofy stuff on here, I was just gonna, for the constant 12, or not the constant, but the ignition 12 volts, I was just gonna go ahead and tap into that darker wire. And I hear a cat meowing. Okay. So now that that's connected with the in and out wire, the ignition wire, and just connected that relay, which will sit down here. Now we can test and make sure that everything's working. Cool, look at that. So the controller's on, showing 51 degrees still. And that's it. Cool, so yeah, get everything tucked in again. Finally got that relay down inside there. I took the ignition wires in there. These kind of dangle in front of the intake, but there's still plenty of airflow in there. I've actually cut the baffle that was in there. There was some plastic covering that was like cutting, like, I don't know, from 1/3 to half of the airflow. I just went in there and just dremeled all that shit out of there. So this aperture is actually pretty wide open right into the air box, so there's no restriction. These wires aren't going to stop anything. But anyways, everything's nice and tucked down, pretty flat. And just for safety's sake, I'm going to go ahead and make sure one more time. Yep. Okay, so the controller's turning on. Beautiful. So now that I know all the wires are set where they're going to be set, now I can go ahead and just tap these little things back in there. And I'm just leaving the power on, man, because if anything goes sideways, I want to know right away. Alright. Okay. That's it. Looks like everything's still on in there, and it's actually kind of sandwiched in there, mashed in there under these tabs. Like, none of this stuff is moving. Look at this. I can't even move any of this with my hand. Everything's kind of just mushed down in there up against the inside of this box. So there's no flexibility to anything except these wires here. But the only thing left to do now is going to be to run the thermocouple. Cool. Alright, so here's everything buttoned up. Never mind my screaming goats over there. They hear me and they know it's time for put away. But anyway, so that cable, that gray one, is actually from the temp sensor. So there's a lot of extra that they've packed with that one. So I basically took whatever excess I had and kind of looped it and just tucked it away over here with these guys. But everything's tucked away, zip tied, nice and firm. Nothing's floating around, nothing's bouncing. So nothing should come loose. Nice and firm on the connections, on the battery. That's nice and stiff. And then these are wires right here are running for the ground. I haven't used a flashlight because it's a little bit dim out here. But anyways, so there's that, and the fan's in, as you can see on the radiator. And then the wire feeds down there for the temp sensor. And I double hose clamped the temp sensor to the outbound oil going to the radiator, so I'm getting a firm read on the temperature of the oil as it's after usage in the engine crankcase, and just to make sure it gets protected and getting a solid reading without getting any wind interference on the temperature. I actually put a little bit of thermal wrap that's for exhaust around that whole situation down there, so everything's covered up. It's protected from the elements downstairs, and it's make sure. Turn that on. Yep, and there it is. So now it's reading FO 53, Fahrenheit 53 degrees. So that's the actual temperature. Obviously, it's what it is out here right now. A little bit warmer day. It's better than the freezing we've had. But so that's all set, ready to go. And then I've also got my temperature of the oil right there on that reading. So that's 13.1 Celsius, whatever that ends up being in Fahrenheit. I guess, I don't know, I'm translating, it's probably about right for being 53 degrees, so we can do the math. But anyway, that's actually reading the temperature of the radiator. So to make sure that I've got oil flow, because I know that if that temperature is reading ambient outside air temperature, then I'm not getting oil, especially when the engine's warmed up. I'm not getting oil up to the radiator. So that's my kind of like warning flag, just to make sure that that's getting good flow. But it also tells me how efficiently it's cooling too. So if it is hot and I get going, I can see the temperature drop. I've already done that for a tester. Got it up to about, I don't know, 74 to 77, 78, 80 degrees Celsius. And I'm not sure exactly what this thing's supposed to run at, but as soon as you start driving on the road, and when it's about 50 degrees, it'll drop back down about 35, 36, 37 Celsius. And it'll stay there, while you're just cruising around, which is pretty cool. So it's doing a nice job. But for those hot days in the summer, I might be riding around town, stopping and going, in really hot, like 95-degree weather. That fan will kick on, and actually that fan puts out enough air. It's blowing air so far out back here, it's actually going to blow it out to the motor as well too. It was blowing all over everything, so that motor is going to collect some benefits of the cooling of that fan. Keep everything nice and in check. So anyways, but it's a good buy. I mean, everything's pretty cheap. It wasn't hard to install anything, just took a few hours. I think overall, between the radiator and the fan and that controller, they're pretty basic wires. You don't even need all of them. There's like some air conditioning wire. You just don't even need that in the extra fan. We only have one fan, so you just tuck the others away and forget about it. But for the value of what you're paying, not a bad deal. All right. Any questions? Hit me in the comments.